My name is Leora Emerson. I am 65 years old. I woke on the morning of my birthday to silence. No balloons, no music, no warm wishes, just the muted light spilling through the blinds and the faint hum of the heater in my apartment. I had expected nothing, yet even nothing can carry a sharp sting. From the living room, I heard my daughter call my name. "Mom, open this," she said, her voice tinged with a smirk I knew too well. On the table sat a small box, wrapped neatly, the kind of care that hides something precise. Calculated, I approached slowly, studying the edges of the paper, the crease of the ribbon, and the glance she threw me over the top. It was a look I had seen before whenever she wanted to assert that she held the upper hand. My husband had long passed, and my daughter had been my closest family. Yet years of small grievances and quiet resentment had accumulated into a tension that no ribbon could conceal. I lifted the box lid, expecting perhaps a key, a book, or some token acknowledging my life, my years, my sacrifices. Instead, inside lay a single one-way bus ticket. My heart sank before it could even rise. 3 hours until departure. No explanation. Just a simple, unambiguous message go. She watched me, her smirk widening, clearly satisfied with the gravity of the gesture. "Good luck," she said, the words clipped, rehearsed, almost theatrical. I looked at her, then at the space where my mother might have been. She had passed some years ago, leaving no one to mediate the tension, no one to soften the edges. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I folded the edges of the ticket carefully and set it back in the box. I did not speak. I did not cry. I did not argue. I hugged her briefly. Not for comfort, but as a final acknowledgement of what had been and what would no longer be. Silence, I decided, was a more powerful reply than any outburst. I gathered my duffel bag and walked out the door. Each step measured, deliberate, freeing. The city hummed softly outside, indifferent to my departure, yet somehow promising a future that would belong entirely to me. The door closed behind me, and with it, the chapter I had long lived in. Ahead, whatever awaited me would not be shaped by their judgment. It would be mine entirely, and I was ready to meet it. As I settled into the bus, the rhythm of the wheels beneath me stirred memories that had long been tucked away. I thought of the years raising my daughter, the nights I stayed awake stitching her costumes for school plays, while my own dreams gathered dust in the corner. I remembered the mornings I skipped breakfast so she could have second helpings, the afternoons spent juggling 2 jobs to make ends meet, and the quiet ache in my chest when her eyes rolled at yet another lecture I gave. "Mom, you don't understand." She had snapped one afternoon when she caught me asking about her homework. Her tone was sharp, dismissive, and for the first time, I felt the weight of my own invisibility. I had devoted myself entirely, yet recognition rarely crossed her lips. Her father had been gone for decades, and though he had contributed in his own way, it was mostly silent support. The household had been mine to manage, the years filled with battles no one noticed. One evening, she stood before me, hands on hips, and said, "You don't get it. Mom, life isn't just about making sacrifices for me." The words stung, though I understood the truth behind them. I had been invisible, my labor expected, my presence taken for granted. I recalled her birthday parties, her school recitals, the awards I clapped for, the tears I wiped, all without complaint, but always silently hoping for a glance, a smile, a word. Instead, I was background noise, a presence to be endured. Even as she grew older, the emotional distance widened. Her words could cut without aim. Her approval remained elusive, and any gratitude was short-lived, fleeting. My voice in the house had become measured, my responses careful. I had learned to navigate the quiet battles, to manage disappointment, to carry the weight of unspoken frustration with dignity. And now, decades later, as the cityscape blurred past the window, I realized how long I had carried their expectations, their judgments, and their dismissals. I folded my hands in my lap, feeling the old pain, yet also a strange clarity. The sacrifices had shaped me, but they had never defined me. The bus hummed to life beneath me, tires gripping the asphalt as I settled into the last row. I held my duffel bag on my lap, fingers tracing the edges of the one-way ticket my daughter had pressed into my hands. 3 hours to Boston, and a lifetime of years I had carried finally felt light in my chest. A small voice interrupted the quiet. "Ma'am, would you like to buy a ticket?" I looked down. A boy, maybe 12 or 13, with a worn jacket and dirt-smudged hands, held out a single lottery ticket. His eyes were anxious, darting between the passengers, hoping someone would spare $1. I only have this one left," he stammered. I smiled faintly, though my chest tightened. "How much?" $2, he muttered. I checked my wallet, hesitated, and then let my eyes drift to the numbers on my bus ticket. They looked arbitrary, but something inside me stirred. "Give it to me," I said. "I'll take it, and keep the change for yourself." The boy blinked. "Really, thank you, ma'am. Don't mention it. Just promise you'll use it wisely," I replied, the words coming softly, almost to myself. He grinned shyly, tucked the ticket into his jacket, and gave a small, nervous bow. I returned my gaze to the window, the harbor water glinting faintly in the sunlight, the wind shaking loose a tension I hadn't known I held. I realized, in that brief exchange, how long it had been since I had acted without expectation or fear. A single gesture, small and quiet, could carry weight beyond measure. The boy's smile lingered in my mind long after he moved down the aisle, and I felt a flicker of something I had forgotten: hope. I unfolded the morning paper with trembling hands, the small kitchen of my Portland apartment quiet around me. My coffee had gone cold. Forgotten. The boy's ticket, the one I had bought on impulse, on a whim, lay next to the mug, numbers carefully tucked away in my pocket. I scanned the numbers aloud, one by one. 5, 12, 23, 34, 47, 62. My voice caught on the last. I read it again, the same. I pressed the paper closer, disbelief pressing into my chest. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "It can't be." The phone buzzed. A message from the lottery office, confirmation of the winning numbers. My hands went slack. I had just won. I sank into the chair, the weight of 65 years settling around me in a new way. Not sorrow, not fear, something else. Power, opportunity, freedom. For the first time in decades, the world shifted, not against me, but for me. The boy's face flashed in my mind. The one small gesture that had seemed inconsequential now carried a magnitude I could scarcely comprehend. I smiled faintly, a slow, dawning realization. This was more than luck. This was a chance to reclaim what had been denied, to reshape the life I had been pushed out of so long ago. I signed the lease with a quiet resolve, the ink on the paper heavier than I expected. The apartment was small, no more than 600 square feet, but the harbor glimmered faintly outside the window, and it was mine entirely. No one's rules, no one's judgment, just walls that belonged to me. I set down my duffel bag and took a deep breath. "Welcome home, Leora," I whispered to myself. The words felt foreign and right at the same time. I unpacked slowly, folding clothes, stacking books, arranging the few mementos I had chosen to keep. The phone rang. I expected it to be my daughter or some frantic family member, But it was the boy from the bus yesterday. Ma'am, I just wanted to say, thank you again, he said, voice hesitant but warm. I'll try to make this count. You will, I told him, a faint smile breaking my lips. Just do your best. That's all anyone can ask. Bills arrived in the mail. I paid them, one by one, and felt a strange satisfaction in the act, as if each check cleared was a small step toward reclaiming my life. I visited the market, bought fresh vegetables and bread, and even splurged on a small pot of daisies for the kitchen counter. No one told me what to do. No one expected me to justify my choices. That evening, I stood by the window, the harbor lights reflecting faintly on the water. For the first time in years, I felt the quiet hum of independence. Not fear, not sorrow, not anger, just a steady pulse of control and freedom. The city outside was busy, alive, and indifferent to my past, and that was precisely how I wanted it. The boy was waiting near the corner market, holding a stack of lottery tickets clumsily in his hands. When he saw me, his eyes widened, and he hesitated, as if unsure whether to run or stay. Hi, I said softly, keeping my voice steady. Do you remember me from the bus? He nodded, shifting from foot to foot. Yes, ma'am, I didn't think you'd come back. I wanted to check on you, I replied. How have you been since yesterday? His shoulders sagged. It's been hard. My mom works double shifts. Sometimes we don't have enough to eat. And the landlord, his voice trailed off. But the glance he cast at the cracked building across the street said everything. I swallowed the tight lump forming in my throat. I think we can fix some of that. I said, come with me. We walked to a small office where I arranged for him and his mother to have stable housing for the next year. I wrote checks for groceries, school supplies, and clothing. Each item, each form I signed, carried a weight of responsibility and satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. Ma'am, why are you doing all this? He asked. Voice small, incredulous. I smiled faintly. Because you deserve a chance. No one should have to struggle alone when they're willing to work and learn. That's what matters. He looked down at his shoes, blinking rapidly. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I told him. Just promise me you'll make the most of it. That's enough. As we stepped outside, I felt a strange warmth settle over me. Helping him didn't make me rich in the way the lottery ticket promised, but it gave me a kind of wealth far more enduring. The boy's hope, fragile but real, mirrored something I had nearly lost in my own life, the belief that small acts, quietly done, could create ripple effects no one could measure. I watched him dash back to his mother, holding the tickets with new pride, and I realized that what I had begun here was more than charity. It was reclamation, for him, and in some way, for me. The phone started buzzing the moment I stepped into my apartment. One message, then another, then a string of calls. I saw my daughter's name flashing, each alert more urgent than the last. I let it ring. Mom, pick up. Where are you? Her first text demanded. I didn't respond. I set my bag down and unpacked the groceries I had bought earlier. The silence in the apartment felt purposeful, almost deliberate. The second message arrived. This one from her husband, Leora. This is serious. You can't just disappear. The bills, the house, everything is a mess. I paused, pressing my thumb against the edge of the counter. My jaw tightened. Years of being told what to do, of being expected to solve problems that were never mine, had hardened a part of me I hadn't accessed in decades. I would not react. I would not yield. The phone buzzed again. Another call. This time, both of them simultaneously. I stared at the screen. They'll calm down eventually. I murmured to myself. I unplugged the phone, placing it out of reach. A small part of me felt their panic, the frantic energy they sent after me. But it was nothing compared to the years of carrying their criticisms, their demands, their expectations. Each message, each ring, reminded me that the control I had ceded for too long was mine to reclaim. I took a deep breath and began sorting the stack of papers on the kitchen table. Bills, letters, and receipts for the boy I had helped. This was the rhythm I wanted now, not dictated by their fear or frustration, but by my own decisions. I heard them leave a voicemail, voices rising and falling in desperation. I let it play briefly, listening to the panic I had long carried in reverse. I smiled faintly. For the first time in years, I was not responding to anyone else's urgency. My life, my rules, my pace. The knock at the door came sharp, insistent. I had been arranging papers for the boys' school supplies when the familiar, impatient voice called out, "Mom, open up. We need to talk." I set the pen down and walked to the door, turning the knob slowly. My daughter's eyes were wide, a mix of frustration and disbelief. Her husband stood behind her, arms crossed, tapping one foot impatiently. "Leora, you can't just vanish the house, the bills, the arrangements we need you," she demanded, voice rising with every word. "I am here now," I said, keeping my tone calm, almost soft. "And I am not here for what you think." "What do you mean, Mom? This isn't a joke," she said, stepping closer. "We've been frantic, I can see that." I interrupted gently, holding up a hand. "But I am not the person who is frantic anymore. I have handled things differently, on my own terms." Her husband's brow furrowed. "On your own. You can't just ignore responsibility." "I am not ignoring it, I am prioritizing it. My responsibility now extends where it matters," I said, glancing down at the small stack of papers for the boy I had helped. This young man and his family were struggling. They needed immediate help. I provided it. Her face flushed. Anger mingled with shock. "Wait, you gave them what? How could you?" "I also gave myself what I needed," I said, lifting the lottery ticket I had purchased for him, folded neatly in my hand. "This ticket made me a millionaire. The same act that helped him has ensured I no longer need to respond to panic or manipulation from you." Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. Her husband's expression shifted from anger to incredulity. They had expected me to grovel, to apologize, to conform. Instead, I stood quietly, firmly, untouchable. You can't be serious," my daughter whispered, disbelief threading her words. "I am serious. I have chosen how to live. You cannot dictate it. And I will not allow you to leverage my choices for your convenience." I closed the door softly, leaving them on the porch, stunned, powerless, for the first time in decades. The control they had long assumed they held had shifted entirely. I set the small lamp on the counter, its warm glow spilling softly across the apartment. The harbor lights outside reflected faintly on the water, but they were no match for the quiet radiance filling this room. The light was mine entirely, chosen and controlled. I sank into the chair, fingers tracing the edge of the table, and let my thoughts drift. 65 years of life, of sacrifices unseen, of devotion misunderstood, all of it led to this moment. The lottery ticket, the boy I had helped, the independence I had fought for quietly, all of it coalesced into something I could finally call my own. A knock at the door startled me, but I didn't rise. My daughter's voice called through, tentative, restrained. "Mom, are you all right? Can we talk?" I didn't answer. My silence carried everything I needed to convey. Years of control assumed by others had evaporated in a heartbeat. I was not here to satisfy their panic, their fears, or their expectations. I was here for me. The apartment was quiet again. I glanced at the lamp. Its light, steady and unwavering. For the first time, I felt the weight of my choices settle into a kind of peace. The boy I had helped would have a better year. The lottery had secured my freedom. And I no longer carried the heavy burden of living to appease others. I allowed a faint smile to touch my lips. No confrontation, no loud declarations, no demands. The power had shifted. Subtly and completely, yet without malice. I had chosen myself. And that was enough. The city hummed below, indifferent to the past, unaware of the struggle it had witnessed from afar. I didn't need approval from anyone anymore. The lamp burned softly, a symbol of the life I would now continue on my terms. I could breathe, I could rest, I could live. I spread the papers across the kitchen table, each one a plan, a possibility, a promise to myself, budgets, investment strategies, and schedules for the boy I had helped all lay before me. I smiled faintly, tracing the lines with my fingers, for the first time in decades. My decisions carried no obligation to anyone else. The phone buzzed with a message. It was the boy. Short and hesitant as always. "Ma'am, we just wanted to say thank you. Mom says you made a big difference." I typed back simply. "Keep working hard. I'll always be here to help. Later." My daughter called again. I let it ring. I had no desire to rehash the past or defend my choices. She could learn what it meant to respect boundaries. As I had finally learned, I reviewed proposals for a small community fund, thinking about scholarships and resources for children like the boy. This was the kind of impact I wanted: quiet, enduring, meaningful. I could see the difference I could make, and it thrilled me more than any lottery prize ever could. I leaned back in my chair, hands resting on the edge of the table. The freedom I had earned was not just wealth, but time, choice, and the ability to act without coercion. Every decision now, every action, was mine entirely. "Are you ready for this?" I whispered to myself. The harbor outside shimmered under the early evening sky, steady and indifferent. I was ready. A life built on second chances could be beautiful, deliberate, and powerful. And now, I had the chance to shape it exactly as I wanted.